Today, we're going to dive deep into the murky waters of the Mekong River. We're telling the story of a creature that's, well, it's basically the stuff of legends. A true freshwater titan. They call it the ghost of the river. And it's facing a very, very modern crisis. This is the story of the Mekong Giant Catfish.
So let's just start with a number that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. 646 pounds. That's the official world record for the largest one of these ever caught. I mean, just let that sink in. It really sets the stage for the kind of animal we're dealing with here.
And to put that number into perspective, a single fish was heavier than a full-grown grizzly bear. Can you imagine trying to pull something like that out of a river? It really does blur the line between what you think of as a fish and, well, a monster.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll explore its legendary status as a ghost in the river. Then we'll face the tough reality of why it's an endangered giant. After that, we'll meet the guardians on the water, see how aquariums have become arcs of survival, and finally, we'll look at the fight for the future.
Okay, let's start where this story really begins. And it's not in some science lab, it's in pure legend. Long before this fish became a symbol for conservation, it was a myth, a ghost that fishermen would whisper stories about along the mighty Mekong.
So scientifically, we're talking about Pangasianodon gigas. This is officially the largest purely freshwater fish on the entire planet. But what's really wild is that these giants, they're gentle. As adults, they don't even have teeth. They get to be that massive by basically just eating algae off the riverbed. Incredible.
You know, the whole modern story of this fish really pivots on one single day back in 2005. A Thai fisherman, his name was Somchai, used this old family bait recipe that everyone else had forgotten about. And with it, he landed that 646-pound female, the ghost, made real. But here's the crucial part. Instead of selling this priceless catch, he and his buddies made a choice. They let scientists tag the giant and release her. That single act, it became a massive turning point, a symbol of hope that really kicked off a whole movement. But Somchai's incredible catch also shine a light on a really harsh reality. These ghosts of the river were vanishing. This one moment of hope was happening against a backdrop of huge threats that were, frankly, bringing this titan to its knees. The official status from conservation groups is, well, it's stark. Critically endangered. That is just one single step away from being extinct in the wild. You know, the situation really could not be more serious.
So what's causing this massive decline? It's pretty much a devastating perfect storm of three things. First, you've got these huge dams on the upper Mekong that are basically choking the river, blocking the migration routes these fish have used for thousands of years. Second, there's overfishing with these super efficient gill nets that just catch everything. And finally, because they're so rare, there's intense pressure from poaching.
But as the threats grew, a new group of heroes started to emerge. This next part is all about the scientists and the local communities who are fighting back, the guardians on the water.
Over the past 25 years or so, researchers have managed to catch, study, and release about 100 of these giants. Now, 100 might not sound like a lot in 25 years, but for a creature this rare and this elusive, each one is a huge victory. It's an absolutely priceless source of data.
And the process itself is like this carefully choreographed scientific ballet. They try to catch a fish while it's on its way to spawn. Then, bam, they attach a tag with a unique ID number. They quickly record all the vital info, size, where they caught it, and then, the most important part, they release it right back into the river to continue its journey.
So why go through all that trouble? Well, this quote from a researcher pretty much sums it up perfectly. Every single tag gives them another piece of the puzzle about their migrations, their habitat, all the critical information they need to figure out how to help these fish survive.
Now, the fight isn't just happening out on the river itself. In this really cool twist, public aquariums have become these kind of modern-day Noah's Arks, providing a safe house for the species' genetics and giving us a window into their secret lives.
And what's so cool is what we can learn in a controlled place like this, things you'd never see in the wild. So check out this aquarium in Japan. Just by studying their 5 adult catfish, they've unlocked all these biological secrets. Like they found out the fish have these natural fasting periods, maybe timed to the river's flood season. And this kind of knowledge is crucial for any breeding programs. But most importantly, these fish are a living genetic library, a last-ditch fail-safe to make sure the species never vanishes completely.
And just to remind ourselves of the insane scale we're talking about here, in the same tank as the grizzly bear-sized catfish, they also have Mekong Giant barb, and these things are the size of sheep. It's a river of absolute giants.
So,
After all the decline, all the frantic work, where do things stand today? This last part is about the fight for the future, and some glimmers of hope that are finally starting to show up.
And there is some really good news. In 2024, researchers have been seeing more of these fish. And here's the key part. They're seeing them on their spawning migration. This is a huge deal. It suggests the population might finally be stabilizing and that the giants are actually reproducing, which, at the end of the day, is the whole goal.
This chart really puts it all into perspective. You can see the historic population way up high, then that terrifying crash to critically low levels. But look at that little bar on the end for 2024. It's a hopeful uptick. It might look small, but believe me, that's the best news this species has had in a very, very long time.
So the big takeaway here, the main point, is that the hope lies in partnership. It's this amazing combination of traditional, local knowledge, like Somchai's family bait recipe, and cutting-edge modern science, like tagging. Together, they're creating a totally new path forward for these giants.
Ultimately, the story of the Mekong Giant Catfish is a story about choices. The choice Somchai made all those years ago to release his catch, and the choices we're all making today. It really leaves us with this powerful question, one that feels like it's echoing from the legends of the river itself. The river is calling. Who will answer?